You're listening to Audiology. Support this channel by becoming a member and be sure to submit your requests for topics in the comments below. Federalist No. 1. General Introduction initiates the Federalist Papers with an essay by Alexander Hamilton. It first captured the public's attention in the Independent Journal on October 27, 1787, under the pen name Publius, the same name all the essays in the Federalist Papers would be published under. This opening piece outlines the broad themes of what Hamilton and the other authors intended to explore, all revolving around the central issue of the United States' proposed Constitution. In this essay, Hamilton delves into the heart of the ratification debate. He presents his perspective on civil discourse and the intensity of the debate, warning readers about the presence of potential agitators. Even though he recognized the charged atmosphere, Hamilton advocated for setting aside emotions and accusations. He was convinced that rational thinking should guide the decision-making process to determine what is genuinely best for the nation. This piece truly reflects Hamilton's belief in the capability of its citizens to establish a robust government. Concluding, Hamilton hints at the topics of future essays in the Federalist Papers, although it turned out not all the discussed subjects were included in the final collection. Publius acknowledges there is a significant conversation happening about whether the United States should ratify its Constitution. He points out the importance of this decision and stresses that it should be made through careful thought, without letting personal biases interfere. He cautions that some individuals might oppose ratification for their own personal gains, but he also advises taking the arguments of those who disagree seriously, judging them on their merits. Publius is concerned that emotions could override logical thinking in this debate, and urges people to focus on rational considerations rather than being influenced by emotional appeals. He does not hold back about his position. He is fully in support of ratification, and he plans to explore several key issues in his upcoming essays. These topics include how the Union will benefit your political well-being, why the current federation is not strong enough to maintain the Union, the necessity for a government that is at least as strong as the one proposed to achieve this aim, how the new Constitution aligns with the true principles of Republican government, its similarities to your own state's Constitution, and how adopting it will offer additional protections for the type of government you have, as well as for freedom and property rights. Alexander Hamilton, the author behind Federalist No. 1, used the pen name Publius to anonymously contribute to a series known as the Federalist Papers. These articles were crafted to clarify the Constitution of the United States details and to encourage New York to approve it. The very first one made its debut in the Independent Journal on October 27, 1787, and shortly after, on October 30th, it was also featured in the Daily Advertiser and the New York Packet. When Hamilton and his colleagues started this project, the discussion on whether or not to ratify the Constitution was already heating up as a significant topic of political conversation. And, interestingly, Federalist No. 1 was written at a time when the anti-Federalist Papers, which presented opposing views, were just starting to circulate. The creators of the Federalist Papers were also venturing into uncharted territory, not knowing how extensive their series of essays would eventually become. In the opening piece of the Federalist Papers, Federalist No. 1, we get a preview of the argument set to unfold. Here, Hamilton reaches out, emphasizing just how crucial the decision to ratify the Constitution really is. He presents it as more than just an immediate choice for those living in America at the time. It's about setting a precedent for what kind of government humans can manage, including for future generations. It's a moment, according to Hamilton, to decide if we're ready for a government of the people. Hamilton also makes a case that accepting the Constitution would forge a stronger bond among Americans, potentially creating a more unified national identity. He keeps it broad, not specifying if this is meant to benefit individuals or the country as a whole. The Constitution's ratification wasn't just a simple decision. It required approval from popular conventions in each state, making it a choice for the people by the people. Hamilton was of the mind that even if the Constitution was approved, its success hinged on the majority's support. He entertained a vision of American excellence, suggesting the United States was on the verge of establishing a novel form of government that would inspire others around the world. This was thanks to what he saw as America's unique ability to let reason guide its governance. On the flip side, he warned that failing to ratify the Constitution could lead to the Union's collapse, a dire outcome for all involved. Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson were on opposite sides of the debate when it came to how much power the federal government should have, despite agreeing on some key principles about the government's role and power sharing with the people. Jefferson was in favor of keeping the government smaller. Hamilton, on the other hand, deeply believed that agreeing to the Constitution was not just a logical choice but a moral one too. He felt that if you looked at the issue objectively, for the good of the public, it would clearly make sense to ratify it. He saw the main reasons for opposition as self-interested, pointing out that some politicians didn't want to lose power to a stronger federal government, while others, the profiteers, might exploit political instability for their gain. Hamilton stood firmly on the ground of reason, arguing that personal motives shouldn't cloud the judgment around the Constitution, and insisted that it is possible to find objective truth in heated debates, although he didn't expect everyone to always agree on what that truth was. Hamilton didn't hold back in criticizing those against the Constitution, suggesting they might either be acting out of self-interest or were too focused on freedom to see the bigger picture about effective governance. He thought that a narrow focus on liberty could foster distrust and opposition to the government, arguing instead for passionate support towards forming a strong government structure. Yet, despite his criticisms, he acknowledged that some critics had genuine concerns, especially those worried about losing their freedoms. He aimed to win over these honest skeptics with logical argumentation. In a broader sense, Hamilton was addressing the early seeds of political polarization, emphasizing the importance of reasoned debate over emotional or self-interested arguments. He stressed the value of assuming the best in political opponents, not attributing evil motives to them without cause, and engaging with their ideas sincerely. His disdain was reserved for those who shut down discussion through sharp words or by demonizing those with differing viewpoints. Hamilton believed in recognizing that decent people could disagree on important issues without it reflecting poorly on their character. Federalist No. 1 introduces its arguments using the style of Enlightenment thinkers, drawing inspiration from the likes of Thomas Hobbes and John Locke. It starts by addressing the public's needs and suggests government as the solution. However, where Hobbes and Locke saw a need for an all-powerful government, Alexander Hamilton made a case for a government with limitations. He also disagreed with Hobbes's negative view of human nature, believing that many people are capable of putting the common good above their own interests. More broadly, Federalist No. 1 dives into deep political philosophy, contrasting the idea of political freedom with being locked into a predetermined path. Hamilton argued that to overcome this so-called path dependence, it is not just about willpower, it is about controlling our passions and making reasoned decisions. When it comes to the ideal government, Hamilton had a clear vision. Publicly, he championed a robust government led by what he called an energetic executive. He thought that the fear of tyranny was exaggerated compared to the benefits of such a government. Hamilton was wary of giving too much power to the masses, concerned that unchecked democracy could lead to leaders who manipulate public opinion and ascend to power through less than ideal means. He saw the alternative to a strong, centralized government as chaos, being at the mercy of accident and force, and possibly ending up under the rule of an arbitrary monarchy, aristocracy, or even anarchy. According to Hamilton, the ideal was a republic ruled by reason, which he saw as the superior form of governance. In Federalist No. 1, several key arguments and methods are introduced that shape the rest of the series. These include referencing historical cases, directly addressing the skeptics of a centralized government, encouraging the audience to lean on reasoning rather than emotion, and presenting issues as if they have clear-cut solutions. It also touches on how both selfish and altruistic motives might influence people's choices and shows a preference for unbiased leadership and a robust government structure. However, not all the ideas hinted at in Federalist No. 1 are explored in later papers. By the time we get to Federalist No. 85, there's an admission of not covering everything promised, specifically the comparison between the proposed national government and individual state constitutions, and how the new system could further protect democracy, freedom, and property rights. Alexander Hamilton, along with his co-authors, went on to become influential in the newly formed U.S. government, which could seem at odds with Hamilton's earlier assurances in Federalist No. 1 that his motives were not self-serving nor power-driven. As the first Secretary of the Treasury, Hamilton put into action his vision for effective governance, significantly increasing the reach and administration of his department, changes that Thomas Jefferson later attempted to dial back. Over the years, significant adjustments have been made to the Constitution, notably the 13th and 14th Amendments following the Civil War, which came about more as conditions of peace rather than through the reasoned debate Hamilton had envisioned. Since the Federalist Papers were written and the Constitution ratified, the nature of government and political life in the United States has evolved dramatically, reflecting changes not only in what government is responsible for, but also in the political process itself. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more content.